I played through the entirety of Honkai Star Rail Story Quest in one sitting. This means that I kind of went through, mind you, I was prepping for a Sparkle, so I did want to kind of immediately get through that entire quest. I didn't want to leave it up for tomorrow. I wanted to go through it all at once. And I did this immediately after completing Ruined Maze quest, because for me, I took a break from the game, about a month-long break after Argenti's banner, or at least during it. So I had to go through this large swath of quests to get through, and I'm gonna be honest, Penacony wasn't that good. Sparkle wasn't even a good character, and I don't really see why people like it. Now, I can understand the concept they were going for, and I do think on a surface level, the dream concept was really nice. It has a lot of potential, especially if they continue on with it. But as of what we've seen right now, it isn't very interesting. And this, in my opinion, falls into two separate sides. First off, you're going into so many different worlds, from Herta's space station, to Yarilo 6, or the ice world with Clara, to the Luofu with Yanqing and those characters. And now we have Penacony. Now, mind you, I understand we go back to some of these places like Herta Space Station or whatever, but when you are going through the game, whether it's in one sitting or whether it's playing it as it's released, none of these places really have enough of a time frame to really get going. You can get used to one world. Maybe you like Luofu, and you're not really going to come back for that until they add a new story quest onto there. And so what this leads to is you don't really get development for any characters beyond the things you already see from their voice lines in-game. Hypothetically, if you already summoned for Jingyuan, Fushuan, or Blade, or even Imbiber Lunai, you pretty much already know enough about the character to get going, but you do want the world to expand on them, the story quest or companion quest to expand on the lore of that character. And on a surface level, it does this, but it doesn't give you any deeper inclination into who this character is. Maybe, if you're lucky, you might get a character popping in with another one. You may get interactions between two units. But if you're unlucky, your character's companion quest is going to be a showcase or at least a build-up moment for somebody else. And this leads into the second issue, in which you kind of don't get characters enough time to breathe or be themselves to a point to where you can legitimately care about them. Nobody knew anything about Ting Yun prior to the time frame in which she was supposed to die. She was introduced, you saw her, she was introduced just like everybody else, and the only reason she got even slightly more screen time was because her death was going to be occurring later on. And so her death went for shock value. It was great because, oh, the next step, oh my god, this is the first death in this game. Mind you, Genshin doesn't have any. But contrary to Genshin, we don't also have any development for this character. And so what you're left with is a character that you may have liked in gameplay, you may have liked the design of, but you didn't really know too much about. And yes, you can say more was elaborated on her after her death, but it doesn't matter. She's dead at that point. You don't really have anything to refer to because this character isn't around. And if they build her up after death and then bring her back, it doesn't really do anything, because the scene that was important for her already occurred. And so if you didn't care about the character then, it doesn't matter what happens to her after. Firefly was much the same. Firefly was actually the opposite of Ting Yun. She was introduced in one world, the one world where she ended up dying in. Spoiler or not, you kind of already knew what you're getting into. But it doesn't really matter, because yes, I understand, you may think she's cute, but her entire purpose for even having any inkling of development was solely to set up that death to be shocking at the end. HSR goes for shock value rather than legitimate character growth and then an end. Even if that end is abrupt, even if it's cut short, even if you're seeing them along an arc and they don't really get to finalize that ending of that arc, you don't get that at all with HSR. You get a character who's meant to be extremely likable, extremely friendly, maybe a bit of intrigue, but that is it. She wasn't set up in Herta's space station. She wasn't alluded to in Luofu. She did not show up at all before Penacony. And what this meant is, once you get there and you're introduced to this character and she's getting development, you kind of know this is odd and unusual. And prior to this, you meet Black Swan and Acheron, and these are two characters who are introduced in a very normal fashion for the game. They pop up, they have some significant role, and you don't really learn too much about them. And yeah, that's not necessarily a good thing, but what you know is they're normal characters, they're playable characters. Here's Firefly, you didn't really see a teaser trailer drop for her or anything like that. She's not on banner, she dies, and you known her for all of maybe 1 hour, maybe more, but no scene that was introduced within that story gave her any negative trait. She was a friendly person. She gave you a tour. Yeah, she's a stowaway, but she had that music playing in the background when she told you what was supposed to be an emotionally pulling moment. Everything about this character sets her up as, I'm going to die soon. I'm nice, I'm friendly, I'm actually really sick, so I live here because I can do what I can't in the real world, and then she dies. Even if you disagree with other characters in the game, at different points in the game, maybe you disagreed with how someone like Imbiber Lunai or Dan Heng handled themselves, they at least had positive and negative traits to a degree that you could at least align yourself with. The only innocent ones were vaguely Clara, Hook, and so on. But Firefly didn't have that, and her only development was due to her being a pivotal character towards the end, and by pivotal, we mean she was going to die. And so if you walk into Penacony and you look at the story itself, yeah, I can understand the dream concept was great, but the dream concept didn't really amount to much. The world wasn't fantastical. You flew in and that was the only time you flew. You didn't even get the ability to jump. If they allowed you the ability to actually jump within that, I could say, hey, that's at least a cool thing to have for this realm in particular. The moving hallways and the walking on walls, that's nice, but they didn't really make it trippy. There was no puzzle that involved movement of some sort where you had to walk on walls. It was just walk on walls, transport this one specific item that allows you to walk on walls at this specific bridge point, and you're fine. But it doesn't mean anything. And if you're an individual who plays Genshin, a lot of the mechanics or puzzles and unique aspects that were in this specific questline were from Fisher's domain in the summer event, so it didn't really feel unique. Even after all of that, Something Unto Death, the new boss, it's neat, it has a cool design, but it's not really anything I'll remember. If you can remember it because it has a creepy design, cool, whatever, I guess. But the design didn't really invoke anything. It didn't have a character, which I understand, sure. And I understand you can say this is a setup and Penacony could have an amazing finish off to it, but given the small amount of development we're giving after large event, I doubt that. I'd say Penacony was 5 out of 10. It was average, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was just bleh. And I know many people would disagree, but tell me your thoughts down below. That's the whole point of this. You can discuss it in the comments and the community posts, I guess. Either way, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.